My name's Adam Bassino. I'm owner and operator of ThatYardGuy LLC out of Sequim, Washington. And here today, I'm sitting with Brandon from Milwaukee. And so we're going to go ahead and talk about Milwaukee Tools today and MX. I'm pretty excited. So yesterday we had the pipeline event going on, and it was pretty awesome. I got to say, it was pretty epic. All the way from the beginning, getting off the bus and entering, and how Milwaukee just really supports the people who use their products, their end users, as well as media influencers, all the way from the bottom to the top. I was pretty impressed. And so it was pretty awesome. We got to do some introductories in the beginning, where we got to even ask questions about the products. We got some hands-on. And so one of my primary visits, besides seeing the growth of Milwaukee, was to see this new MX series that you guys have been producing. So that way, in the landscaping industry,
Yeah.
I'm a hardscaper out of Sequim, and so I do a lot of pavers, retaining walls, even venture off into the maintenance. But for right now, it was all about hardscaping.
Yeah.
And so you had last year you just came out with this plate compactor 20-inch. I had a chance to try it. So do you want to tell me about how it was that you came to wanting to get involved into the landscaping install industry, and where you came at now with this plate compactor as well as some other tools?
Yeah, you bet. So we've been out with MX for a couple years now, and as we launched the system, right, we were primarily focused on our general contractor, our concrete trades. We've got a full solution, a full product lineup of pour to finish concrete solutions, and so compaction, right, often bookends the wet concrete process. You're generally compacting before you're pouring, and sometimes structural concrete, right, you're compacting afterwards. And so one of the cool things with a lot of the products that we're doing is they're really considered core pieces of like construction equipment. So it's not like a single trade is using them. And a plate compactor is a perfect example of that, right? You have your general contractor, your concrete guys that are using them. You've got asphalt crews that are using them. You'll even have your mechanical, electrical, your plumbing trades that are using them sometimes for backfilling or patching behind utility installations. And then obviously we've got Hardscape, right, which are huge users of plate compactors. And so that's what's been pretty cool is as we've grown this system, right, and we started an initial focus primarily in in general contracting and in concrete. Our natural product lineup has expanded to the point where we're really starting to meet the needs of some other core users for us, like Hardscape.
Awesome. So now you have three compactors. So you have two different plate compactors, one that has the water reservoir on the front so that way it can wet down the base, and then we also have the rammer.
Yep. So actually two. So the ones that you saw yesterday, we're trying to trick everybody. We had two configurations of our accessories. So it's actually the same 20-inch plate, but to your point, we've got three different accessories that we just launched. So we've got a paver pad that attaches to the bottom, obviously used at the end of patio construction to set the pavers. We also just came out with a wheel kit as well. So attaches onto the back of the tool, makes it way easier to maneuver around on flat ground. And then lastly, yeah, we also had the water tank. So we were showing two different plates in both the base compaction for, pre-laying pavers, and then we also had one with the paver pad over there. And then yeah, we've just announced as well later this summer we'll be in full production with our 70 kg rammer, which we're very excited about. So our second compaction product
Yeah.
as a company.
Awesome. So I have a question for you, and regards to compaction.
Yeah.
So how many pounds of compaction force does this plate compactor have?
Yeah, yeah. So that's what's pretty cool. So our plate compactor is hitting harder than pretty much all gas compactors in the market. We're up to 3,700 pounds of force. But what's cool about that too, and what's interesting is It's not just how hard we're hit. That number is actually calculated based on the weight in the exciter and how fast we're spinning. But actual compaction is a derivative of a few other things. So one of the neat things that's unique about our plate is our exciter is actually located dead center of the plate. And so what that does is that helps that plate have a much more even smack onto the ground, really transfer that force in and provide really adequate compaction. That's one of the reasons why we're able to travel faster as well while still delivering that same compaction.
Awesome. And then, so my experience with the in the landscaping industry, so we have multiple different type of plate compactors with certain purposes, which is why I am extremely excited about that rammer.
Yeah,
So because where I'm from, we not only have like some more well-drained soils, which is where that plate compactor comes into play, but we also deal with clay. And
yeah,
so that's where that rammer is going to be awesome, especially for like the trenches for retaining walls.
yeah.
Um, we my company, I know we do quite a bit of retaining walls, and so it makes it way easier in the trenches,
Hmm.
and I had a chance to demo that rammer yesterday, and I was pretty impressed with the how it maneuvered and the lightweight, and also the safety feature, the
Yeah,
fact that you tip it and it shuts off,
yep.
you know so do you have um any plans in the future to possibly upgrade the compaction force?
Yeah. So I'll tell you, these are our first two compaction products in the industry today. Both a 20-inch plate and a 70 kg rammer, right? Our core pieces of light construction equipment. I'll tell you, we are continuing to learn more and more about the compaction needs of our industry. Obviously, there's plate compactors you can buy in a range of sizes and weights, and it's very similar with rammers. We are on the higher end of the rammer, right? But they go much smaller as well. So we're going to continue to do what we do at Milwaukee, and that's spend time with you and spend time with users in the field and learn about, what you're using, why you're using, what you like, what you don't like. And that's what really drives us to, figure out where we want to go next. So I wouldn't close the door on anything.
Yeah, 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 that's understandable.
Yep.
Yeah.
You mentioned something that I think I want to clarify because I think it's a really good point that not a ton of people who aren't using these products every day realize, right? So both a plate compactor and a rammer are compaction products, right? But they have different uses. So when do you bring out a plate compactor? When do you bring out a rammer, right? And a lot of people don't realize it's primarily based on your substrate, right? And what you're compacting. Where plate compactors, vibratory plate compactors are really meant for more granular soils, right? Where as you shake them, they settle into the most dense, configuration possible. Whereas rammers are more meant for like those cohesive soils, high clay content, right? Where if you shook that, it's not really going to do anything. Those types of soils, you really need some impact force to really punch them down, right?
Absolutely.
And that's primarily what determines it. So yeah, I'm glad you brought that up. I've had that conversation a ton, and it's even surprising sometimes as you're working with newer people in the industry, right? They've even asked the question, or they're like, yeah, not really sure why we bring this out, over the other one. So
Yeah, yeah, most definitely. Site preparation is super important. Typically when you go into a job, you need to have like a soil engineer being brought in,
yeah.
especially for like commercial jobs. But I do some commercial, but I do a lot more residential than anything.
Hmm.
And so, yeah, well-drained soils, versus clay soils. I'm not sure how your soils are out here.
Yeah.
I mean, I hear some areas are a little bit more rocky, a little
Hmm.
bit tougher to dig in. Um, but I know for us, clay, sand,
Yeah.
silt, you
Yep.
know.
Yeah, and it's interesting too because it's all regional across the United States, and there's some you can like Google online and find some maps, right, that like kind of show the soil breakdowns. And what's interesting is as you see certain areas where there are higher clay content, those are areas where you generally see higher sales volumes of rammers,
Yep,
generally because of that reason.
absolutely.
Yeah. Tell me more a little bit about hardscape, right? And the different types of jobs that you're doing. So obviously patio construction, right? Retaining walls, primarily residential, or who's your big target market?
Yep. So my biggest target customer is residential. I do a lot of patios. Currently, we're working on a pool deck, about 3,000 square feet with a Urbana three-piece stone.
Okay.
Absolutely beautiful stone. It's actually it's great for interlocking pavers, but at the same time, it's even good for what we call permeable pavers. So we have two different types of applications that we could be doing,
Yeah.
and it calls for a different type of base at the same time. So, but they both have compaction involved with them.
Yeah.
Having the right compaction, which is about 95% compaction, is what we want to go for.
Yeah.
That's our density test.
Hmm.
And so, right now it's a non-permeable paver application. So we got about 4 inches of base that goes down. We have to compact it in 2-inch lifts, slightly wet it down to get that compaction. And then we lay 1 inch of sand over the top of that, with screeded with a 3/4 inch galvanized pipe, and our paver set on that, interlocking with a polymeric sand. So
Yeah.
I've actually had firsthand with your plate compactor
Yeah.
from base to a polymeric sand application, and it's actually, oh man. So some of the features I really love about that thing, let's talk about that, is the forward reverse.
Yeah.
Okay, so you have two speeds on it, and so we could do heavier compaction, lighter compaction, and then all I got to do is press the button, and all of a sudden it just wants to stop, and it goes the opposite way. I just flip the
Hmm.
handle over, which is just like super awesome.
Yeah.
So some plate compactors you have a handle where you gotta go and then you're walking backwards, but
Yeah.
for this one it just stops, flip the handle over, and then start walking the other direction.
Yeah, and on
You know.
and on and on gas plates or single direction plates, right? When you get to get into a corner and you're operating, and then you have to pull it backwards.
Yep.
Tell people what happens if they're not familiar.
Oh, if you have to pull it backwards,
Yeah,
oh yeah, your gravel's just going. It's going with you.
yeah,
You
yeah.
know.
So that's the cool thing about our plate compactor, right? So Adam's mentioning we've got reverse, and hardscapers as well as asphalt users have just loved it. When we show them that, they just light up. And the reason is normally on those plate compactors, when you pull them backwards, they dig in and they mess up your grade. They leave lines in your asphalt. And now you got to have someone come back and either rehand level, right? Retamp that out right in the corner. Whereas with our plate, we can, go right up into that tight spot, hit reverse, and then just back out, right? And saves a ton of time. So it saves a ton of rework. And that's, again, I mean, anytime you interface with anybody from Milwaukee, right? That's what we're obsessed with: productivity, safety, durability, right? And
Absolutely.
that's a big part of that productivity, right? Not having to go back and do the job twice.
Yep. Yep. Do the job twice, or even downtime as well. Like you slap the battery in, and it's charged. You just go to work.
Yeah,
Opposed to, I don't know how many times I had to sit there with the handle just pulling the cord, pulling the
yeah,
cord. We have the fuel filter or carburetor
yep,
and stuff, and the loudness.
yep.
So you just go.
We talked about this yesterday too, and I always like throwing this fun fact out. But do you remember? I think I asked, what's the last car to roll off a U.S. assembly line without with a carburetor in it?
Oh,
I don't
man.
expect you to
So,
remember, but I love this little trivia
yeah.
bit. 1992 Jeep Grand Wagoneer. So if you think about it, 30 years, right, in the auto industry, they've had standard fuel injection. Fuel injection was standard before that, right? So
Uh-huh.
you have whole generations of people that are used to just pushing a button or turning a key and going, and then they get on a job site and they need to work, right, with construction equipment, and they're like, wait, what how do you choke an engine? How do you prime an engine? I gotta flutter, the choke and play with it, right? So we're trying to deliver that same productivity, that same, ease of startability on our products, which is just incredibly valuable.
And so, briefly, you want to talk about the runtime also on the
Yeah.
battery and the difference between like your 6,
Yeah.
8, 12.
Yeah, so on the MX system, we have 4 different size batteries right now. We've got when we originally launched, we've got a CP, a compact 3.0 battery. We've got our XC 6.0. And then as we launched the plate compactor, as well as a couple other pieces of equipment, we launched our new red lithium forge batteries. And so those batteries have the longest life. They are the fastest charging, the most durable batteries that we've ever put out. And that's really unlocking a new category of product that requires power and runtime, right? It's allowing us to play in spaces like a plate compactor and like a rammer. So today that plate compactor is going to get kitted with two HD red lithium forge, HD 12O red lithium forge batteries. Each one of those batteries is going to deliver 35 continuous minutes of runtime. And then it'll recharge in 65 minutes. And what's interesting, this has been just a crazy dynamic that as we've continued to get into compaction, really having some detailed conversations with users about runtime. So an interesting dynamic with gasoline products is they can often be so difficult to start that they'll start them up and then they won't necessarily turn them off in the job. They'll just idle them down when they're not using them. More rammers than plates, but we do see occasionally on plates. And so you'll compact for 5, maybe 10 minutes, and then you'll set it aside, right? You'll do some grading. You might add another lift, right? And then there's downtime in between when you're going to bring that plate compactor back out. Generally, on most job sites, especially hardscape job sites, that amount of downtime in between lifts, in between passes, right, allows you to recharge that second battery if you even need it,
Mhm.
right? One of the difficult dynamics we've had is, people at the end of the day, they'll go and they'll look at their hour meter on their gas equipment and they'll see, oh wow, I put 2.5 hours on this thing, but they didn't run it for 2.5 hours,
Mhm.
right? They were actually operating it for 45 minutes or an hour and a half, and there's downtime where it was just idling. So really trying to have those discussions, make sure we understand the different applications that people are performing, what their run times are, and then have those discussions about recharging the battery. We call it duty cycle, is just as important as your runtime.
So for the contractors who do their billing by the hour
Mhm.
of runtime on their equipment, are you also going to be incorporating in the future like an hour meter for use on those machines?
That's interesting. We've tried to stray away from that for a couple reasons, just because so much of people's expectations of equipment maintenance and hours, right? And when they have to perform certain things, it's a completely different uh, expectation on gas than it is on battery, right? And so we haven't done that before, but we're not opposed to it. One neat note about that too, I think that's good to call out, is a lot of times our meters are also tied to service, right? And a lot of that is tied to the engine service, right? You need to know where your hour is on the machine so that you can perform a ton of change your spark plugs, change your oil, change your air filter, right? All of those things. We don't have that.
Yeah,
I mean,
correct. Yeah.
by pulling the engine off, I mean we've just reduced the majority of the service and the maintenance items on that. And so that's another reason why we didn't necessarily put hour meters on the tools.
Mhm.
But what is neat is on a couple of our MX pieces of equipment where we still do have some service points. I'll bring up like the MX breaker, right? Is a really good example. You've got to grease that tool occasionally. We don't have an hour meter, but what we do is have a service indicator light. So it is tracking the hours internally, and once it gets to a point where it recognizes that, hey, it's time to relube this tool up, it's going to just blink that light up, and it's going to turn it on the UI to notify the user, similar to what your car does as well, right?
Yep.
You're not necessarily looking at your car's hours. Sometimes you'll look at the odometer, but cars today, right? They notify you. They've got smart oil detection lights, right? That's essentially what we're baking into all of our products. That's part of the lower maintenance, right? Or even no maintenance in a lot of cases that we have on the MX system.
Oh, that makes sense. And when it came to the batteries, you mentioned about this new forge system and the cooling system that's involved. Um, how long does it take for the batteries to be cooling down with this new system that you're coming out with?
Yeah, so there's some pretty cool tech in our new red lithium forge batteries. And so one, we're just so much thermally stable, right? Just in operation. But then beyond that, as you're recharging them too, part of cool cycle is both the batteries have a vent as well as the charger, and we're forcing air through those batteries just to maintain temperature, keep them cool. That allows us to charge faster, right? So we can charge a battery as fast as we want, but at some point we're going to create so much heat that that battery's going to be useless,
Yep.
right? And so what cool cycle does is it continues to move that cool air through it, keep those temperatures down, which maximizes how fast we can charge it.
That makes sense. So another, I say, concern I initially had in regards to going from gas to battery is oftentimes battery doesn't operate too well with moisture and water.
Yeah.
And so in doing a tour of Milwaukee and talking about these new batteries, you have invented a system that makes it to where now operating these batteries in a little bit more moist areas doesn't affect it too much. And how is it that it doesn't affect it?
Yeah. Yeah. So two ways I want to answer that question. I want to take a step back and talk about something really important. So we saw at Milwaukee, 10 years ago, battery technology capability advancing to the point where we were going to be able to power things beyond power tools. And at that point, we had a decision: do we just make larger, M18 batteries, or do we need to do something else? And so we, in true Milwaukee fashion, spent thousands of hours on thousands of job sites. And that is not hyperbole, right? And what we did was we were just learning about equipment, all the various types of equipment that are using gas engines, hydraulic hoses, pneumatic hoses, right? Playing in the power range that had been in the past off limits. And we learned a couple things, right? That storage, power needs, right? How these pieces of equipment are transported, taken care of, do start to differ, right, from power tools. And that was what justified us saying, hey, you know what? Let's snap a chalk line and we're going to do another system, which is a big deal because we focus on system compatibility. And so to break that compatibility is we don't do it lightly. But really what we learned is, going to the MX system, right? Creating a system like this is going to give us a much longer runway had we just tried to create larger batteries on our existing system. And so part of that is also learning how equipment is stored and treated differently than power tools. It's left outside a lot more often, right? Plate compactors specifically, they'll sit on a job site and it'll start raining. It's not uncommon for a plate compactor to be in the bed of somebody's pickup truck as they're driving around, or just left in the bed of a pickup truck. Sometimes they get put in storage in a Connex, right, in a job box, but sometimes they're just sitting outside exposed to the elements. And so part of, as we developed the MX system, was, hey, we really need to learn and understand this, not just the environment, but the expectations of the users. And if we're going to come and play into the space that gas has dominated, at minimum, we need to meet the expectations that our users have with gas equipment. But in true Milwaukee fashion, we want to do better than that, right? We want to elevate that experience and elevate those expectations. And so that's the neat thing is as you're looking at, a plate compactor, and if you're used to running a gasoline plate compactor, you can expect how you treat that gasoline plate compactor, you can treat our battery plate compactor, our MX plate compactor, right? So it can get rained on, it can get dirty. You can hose it off to clean it off at the end of the day. We ask that you don't pressure wash the terminals specifically, right? But it'll survive in the elements. And I mean, we've got rigorous testing and we've done rigorous benchmark testing, not just learning in the field, but also, in our labs to really understand, what the expectations of users are, and making sure as we're coming out with equipment that we're meeting or exceeding those expectations.
I have a little bit off topic of
Yeah.
compaction.
Yeah.
So because being into hardscaping, I do a lot of cutting.
Oh yeah.
And so I have also tested out your masonry cutters,
Mm-hmm.
first gen, second gen. Really love them both.
Yeah.
Love the second gen more though. They
Yeah.
have some cool features there because as soon as you're done sawing, or cutting any concrete or pavers, so the water just shuts off on its own, which
Yep.
is pretty convenient. Not wasting water, not having to deal with more of a mess. Like sometimes you forget to shut the water off because you're just so busy doing other things, get distracted, and all of a sudden
Yeah.
you're just taking the concrete dust and it's kind of going down the way,
Oh
you
yeah.
know. But I'm also huge into cutting off of a table. So I own an
Hmm.
IQ power saw. Yes, it's corded, and it's a dry cutting saw. But because of our regulations with silica,
Hmm.
we're supposed to either be wet cutting or we're supposed to be having some sort of reclaim system to collect the dust if we're dry
Hmm.
cutting. Um, you have a vac that is out called the was it the Link Vac?
Yeah, our Vac Link system.
Link.
Yeah, correct. So we've got a new vacuum out that has a Bluetooth connection to a Vac Link system. So it's essentially a remote on and off button. You can either put it on your wrist, you can attach it to the tool, and that way, as you start cutting, right, you need to turn that vac on. You can turn it on, start cutting, and then when you're done, you can turn it off too. You no longer have to set the tool down, run back over to the vac, turn it on and off, right? Where again, productivity, where you don't have to extra steps, right? We're taking that out of the equation.
Mhm.
Yep.
So are you um, going to produce a dry cutting saw for masonry with that system tied to it?
Yeah. So I'll tell you, we have some dry cutting solutions primarily on our core drills today that hook up to vacs. On our saws, we don't. We are being asked more and more for that. Primarily, we do a water hookup. But I'd say it's something that as we hear more and more people asking about, it's something that we need to spend more and more time learning about. I do know that there's some accessories out in the market as well, um, uh, that we've looked at, right? But I think we probably need to spend some more time with our users learning about them.
Yep, yep, understandable.
Yep.
So, um,
So that saw, really quick,
yeah,
while you're talking about the our 14-inch cutoff saw with rapid stop, right? So a couple really cool features that we added that I think are really important to the hardscaper. So a lot of cutting that happens with hardscaping, right, is often in a cut station, right? I assume when you're getting block delivered, right, you're not moving that block a ton to cut it. You're generally going to where it is, cutting it, and then moving the cut blocks individually. Is that accurate?
correct.
Yeah. Yeah, and we see that a ton. And so, with some competitive saws, they don't necessarily have blade breaks. And so, it creates a pretty dangerous situation where, you cut, right? You cut your paver block and then you put the saw down, and then that blade will continue to spin for 15, 20, 25 seconds, right? And there's guys walking back and forth and they're at risk of getting their pants or their shoes caught on that. Whereas with our saw, with our rapid stop brake, right? The minute you let go of that trigger, it's automatically going to apply that brake and stop within 3 seconds, creating a much safer environment, right? Or you'll have users where when they're done cutting, because that blade's going to keep spinning, they'll push it down on a scrap piece of block or even on the pallet, right, to try to stop it. And in that case, you're just dulling your blade. And I think we all know, diamond core accessories aren't necessarily the least expensive accessories. So yeah, by having that blade break, not only are we more safer, right, but it's helping keep money in your pockets too.
Absolutely. And saving additional work too, because I've seen it a couple times also. You go to set it down and all of a sudden it wants to tip forward a
Yeah.
little bit and it nicks the stone,
Yeah.
or your concrete, and you're just like, I'm gonna have to redo that,
Yeah.
you know.
Hmm.
But no, that's awesome. Yeah, thank you for sharing that. I know it's a little bit off topic,
Yeah,
but
no, no. I
so
mean, hey, we're talking about hardscape, and I mean, I know it's a lot of compaction, right? But compaction is just one phase well, I guess you could say two phases, right? Compacting base, and then sometimes you're compacting the pavers as well. But I think what you calling out is great. Our MX product line, it's not just a compactor. right? It's not just compaction products. We've got cutting products, coring products. We've got a full solution from pour to finish from, 3 different concrete vibrator solutions, screed, green cut saw, trowels. We've got a submersible pump that we just announced too for, small scale flooding, which occasionally if you're doing retaining walls, right, or even pools subground, right, and you get caught with, still in grading and you get rain. Next thing you know, you got a couple 100 gallons you got to pump out. So we've got solutions. We've grown our MX system to well over 20 different solutions across all the different phases of construction. And I think, yeah, talking about other products is important to let people know that.
Where do you see yourselves going a year from now?
Oh man, we had this discussion. Somebody asked this in pipeline. I think our leadership answered it really, really well. Right? I mean, we've traditionally been we're very focused on our core users. Right? Mechanical, electrical, plumbing were our base users, and then we expanded into carpentry. Right? And we've continued to expand earlier and earlier into the phases of construction. Right? We got into concrete. Right? And now we're talking about site prep products. But what the cool thing about site prep is 100% of our core users participate in site prep. It just looks different from job site to job site. And so, before we jump around and add more and more core users, right? I think there's still a lot of opportunity in the users and in our trades that we're already focused on. And so, I think I'm trying to remember how they phrased it. No doubt are we continuing to look around, but we're looking within, right? And even within our existing trades, right? Like I think you see OPE. We talk about the OPE market, and traditionally, in the last few years, Milwaukee Tools, we focused on OPE. It's been a lot of maintenance and tree care, right? But hardscape and landscape construction is just as big. That's the other half of the whole industry, right? And I think our MX system has really been focused on general construction and general contractor and concrete, right? But in reality, that landscape construction is what really bridges that gap between you know industrial construction and the OPE, the landscape maintenance side of it. And so we're excited. Obviously, the plate compactor, the rammer, the cutoff saw, those are core pieces of equipment that are used in hardscape. And we're excited to learn more and dive even deeper, right, into the different products that you guys use, learn more about them, and figure out ways that we can continue to drive productivity, safety, and increase durability in your workday.
Awesome. Wow, thank you for that.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I've been pretty impressed.
Was this your first time to Milwaukee,
This is my
by the
first
way?
time to Milwaukee.
Ah,
Yeah.
awesome.
So that's extremely exciting,
Yeah.
nervous at the same time, but very welcoming.
Mm-hmm.
Had a wonderful experience here. Everybody's been great all the way from, the presentation. Like, I can hear people talking about the products,
Yeah.
but there's nothing better than getting hands-on with the
Oh,
product.
yeah.
And that's what you guys presented at this
Yeah.
event. We got to test a lot of different things out,
Mhm.
see it as it was working. And it was extremely impressive.
You know what's cool, Adam, is, so many people look forward to, coming to Pipeline. And I'll tell you, all the product managers look forward to this just as much, but for a different reason, right? You guys are excited to see all the new stuff. We're interesting people at Milwaukee, especially in product marketing. The best part of our job is spending time with our users, with the people who are hands-on with our equipment every single day, right? The expectation at Milwaukee is that as product managers, we're spending as much time on the job site as we can. We can't learn about, what you're using, why you're using it, what you like, what you don't like. We can't find ways to drive productivity, safety, durability if we're not, out there with you, watching you use the tools. And so the more time that we can spend having these discussions, right, learning more about what you do, why you do it, right? Like that's just more opportunities for us to go back and realize, hey, we can move the needle in a lot of places. And so yeah, it's cool as we develop projects, right, or products, right? Early on, we're just going out and we're just learning about what you're using and why you're using it, right? And over time, we start to see opportunity to say, like, you know what? We think if we did this, we could make some changes that could have some pretty big impacts. And so we'll start bringing samples out early, right? And what's cool about that is I'll spend time with you know, a landscaper, a hardscaper, and they'll say, "Yeah, I really like this product, but if you can make this tweak, you know, that would really make a change." And I'll come back 3 weeks later and I'll have made a change. Our engineering teams will quickly mock something up and I'll say, "Did we get it right?"
Right.
And they're shocked. They're like, "Oh my gosh, you listened to me." It's like, yeah, yeah. I mean, we want to make great products, right? And so
Yeah.
what you're seeing at Pipeline here is the culmination of all of that, right?
Yeah.
Of months, sometimes years
Yeah.
of us making changes and bringing it back out to the field. Did we get it right? Making more changes, bringing it back out to the field. And so when we finally get to the finish line and we're able to really put that product out there and say, "Hey, like, check it out." And seeing your guys' faces be like, "Oh my gosh, we've been asking for this for years," or like, "Oh my gosh, you guys like a really good example, the auto shut off, the water shut off on the electronic water shut off on our 14-inch cutoff saw. So simple, right? But you're not creating puddles and mud puddles on the job site anymore. You don't have to constantly think of turning on, off. Is the water on? Is it off? I'm not sure, right? Like those just small pieces of innovation just change people's how they work, all right, day to day, and just delight them. And that's the coolest part about this.
I'm really looking forward to seeing how the rammer does in the field. Like I said, I have lots of clay out in our area,
Yeah.
and you know, I just really looking forward to seeing how we can incorporate that type of system
Hmm.
into our landscaping company. I think that you guys are doing awesome. I was really impressed with the fact that now you guys are getting into landscape. I'm like, okay,
Yeah.
that's pretty sweet. Um, and so you're telling me if
Yep.
I ask for something in 3 weeks, you can make those changes. So in 3 weeks, you can give me a 10,000 pound compaction machine. No.
Yeah. I wish it was that quick.
Yeah.
Yeah, we generally, when we're in a program, right, we can 3D print things and bring things out to make changes. We strive, that would be amazing if our MPD processes were just 3 weeks long, but yeah,
Yes.
yeah. What do you want to see though? Like,
I would like to actually see a little bit more compaction, to be honest with you.
yeah,
I think that what you have right now is really good for starting out in the industry,
mm-hmm,
and you already did step up right in the beginning as far as a machine that produces 3,700 pounds of compaction
yeah,
is not a forward reverse.
yeah, mm-hmm,
They're typically forward only.
yeah,
And so you're already one step ahead of the game when it
yeah.
comes to that transition. So I'm pretty impressed.
We're proud of that too. I mean, I think that's a testament, honestly, to our MX system. I talked about, you know, do we snap a chalk line? Do we do a whole new system, or do we just make larger batteries on existing, right? And it's a testament to our MX fuel system, the capability of our red lithium forged batteries that are allowing us to deliver the run times, the power to play in the spaces that users expect and users use on their gas equipment, right? Not everybody can say that. And as you look at some of the competitive products in our market today, a lot of them are downsized. Actually, you're seeing smaller plates with less impact force, right? And it's a testament to our battery that we're able to deliver on, you know, the full size products, a 70 kg ram or a 20-inch plate compactor. So we are excited about that.
Yeah.
If you can't tell, I'm excited about
Yeah.
that.
No. I'm even more excited because I can't wait to see what comes out next.
Yeah. Yep. We're working on a lot. I'll
Yeah.
tell you that. Ducks on a pond. We look calm when we're sitting down on podcasts, but under the water, there is a lot of paddling. A lot of paddling.
Yeah. Awesome. It's
Yep.
like Willy Wonka. No,
Yeah.
I'm just kidding.
Yes. Yeah. You know what's funny? I joked about this. I was like, that would be a cool video for us to film. Like someone kind of walk into Pipeline like Willy Wonka singing Pure Imagination.
Oh, that
Right?
is
Like,
funny. Yeah.
because that's what it is. I
Yeah.
mean, you guys ask for it, right? And then in a couple of years, like it's here. That's our goal.
Yeah. Well, I guess we're gonna go ahead and wrap this up. So,
Cool.
yeah, thank you, everybody. Like I said, Adam Pacino with That Yard Guy, and you wanna introduce yourself?
Brandon, MX product manager. Thanks for the time.
Yeah, thank you.